Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Angela Harris, and I'm joined today with my husband, Kimoko Harris. And we're here. We decided to start a show just to keep people in the city of Wilmington, the state of Delaware, informed on what's happening here. There's so many things that are changing in this state, in this city, you know, quickly. I look around, there's all this construction, all of these buildings coming up, and places being relocated, people being relocated, just so much happening. And you just realize that there's not really a media out there that keeps us up to date as to what's happening in our communities. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to have this show, me and Kimoko. Um, I guess we can start off with one of the things I wanted to share was about P2A. One of the things that we worked on. It's called the Pathway to Apprenticeship. It's a program that deals with trying to bring the younger kids, children who otherwise wouldn't go to college or who need a second chance into the workforce. And it all started from when my husband Kimoko was looking at the port expansion and wanted to know that what is going to happen when the port is up and running, and when it's trying to get up and running, if we do get a buyer for it, who was going to do the jobs? And so he wanted to train someone into doing that, and kind of like it's history. So what about P2A, honey?
Well, just to give a little background in terms of why, to go into a little more explanation of why PTA was developed. The port expansion is going to be as we had envisioned, and when I say we, I mean the ILA. Um, we had envisioned as being like a catalyst and an engine to develop thousands of jobs because the port is probably the only, not probably, it is the only blue collar jobs that pay decent wages and employ people, constantly, meaning people can have a career there and work there and retire there because shipping is going to always be around as long as there's international trade. And so the port, will fill the vacuum or will help fill the vacuum created with us losing Chrysler and General Motors and Avon, the DuPont companies, some of the banks who have left, and thousands of other blue-collar jobs and factories that have left the state of Delaware. So the port expansion is going to help fill that void because
Well, it's
shipping,
helping to fill the
yes,
void.
is helping to fill that void because shipping generates more jobs than any other sector because with shipping you have thousands of people working at the port as direct employment, and then you have indirect, and then you have direct, indirect, and those jobs that
Induced.
and induced that come from shipping, because shipping you need truckers. The shipping industry is going to create thousands of trucking jobs. That with the port expansion on the Delaware River, particularly when Edgemore is built, we're going to be able to have ships that are 3 and 4 times larger than the largest ships that we get in the port now, which means we're going to have ships that carry 6, 7, and 8,000 containers as compared to the ships now that carry 1,000 and 1,500. And that means that you're going to need trucks to move those containers from the dock to their destinations, or rail. Some of those containers will be put on rails. But if you got a ship that has 6,000 containers on it, then you need 6,000 forms of transportation to move those containers, those boxes. And the majority of that is going to be trucking. So you're going to need thousands of truck drivers, to to manage or to service one ship. And we're saying that port expansion, the port that's going to be developed in Edgemoor, is going to hopefully have numerous ships that are 10,000, 12,000, and maybe more containers coming, TEUs of containers coming into the port. And like I said, so that's going to mean that's thousands of truck driving jobs a day. Thousands.
I'm thinking about, honey, us sitting here talking, having this conversation makes me think about when we were saying that if this port expansion happens, it will create the jobs. And actually now it's like an update because we can actually give an update from the previous, conversation where we were pushing, but now we can actually say that plea that we were making out to the people, to the public, for their help, it all paid off.
Yes, I mean, a lot of people didn't believe it. They didn't believe what had happened when we said that the shipping industry could create 5,000, 6,000 jobs, with a new port built on the Delaware River. And a lot of people initially, I'm saying this is after 6 years, but really 8, it started 8 years ago, but folks just could not believe that this could happen and the state wouldn't have to pay a dime.
Well, it really started in 2008.
Yes, yeah.
And the first meeting we had with the governor was when he got elected in 2008, and we met.
2009.
It was in 2009.
January, yeah.
But one of the things that we wanted to talk to him about back then was about the port expansion. Well, the deepening of the
the deepening on the river was the first phase
for the port expansion that was coming.
Yeah.
And so those are like conversations that we've had back then that now has become a reality. So it's kind of like an update to what's happened. I mean, it just it shows that if people are informed, and you kept them informed, you kept going to the community, you kept going to the civics, talking with the churches, going on Channel 28.
I had to make people believers.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of non-believers. I had to make people believers and believe that it could happen, and that Wilmington, Delaware was in a strategic location in terms of shipping. It's set in the middle of 2 major population centers, New York, New England, and Virginia Beach, south. Those 2 major population centers, and Delaware sits right in the middle. So if a shipper ships here, he can move his cargo easily north or south and hit the major population centers, and also that we're only 12 hours from Chicago, the Chicago region, which is the major consumer center in the nation, and show them that the shipping industry would be interested, and they were. They bit what we put out there as the bait. Look, come to Delaware, we're 12 hours from Chicago, we're sitting in the middle from New York and from, Virginia. We have excellent rail service because GM and Chrysler created the rail service because when they built their vehicles, they had to ship them around the country. And that's why in the back of GM, you got 10, 12 rails because the General Motors plant and also, the Chrysler plant, they had rails, they had to ship their cargoes around the country. And so the rail systems are good here. All those things that shippers need to move their cargo throughout the country and to sell their commodities. We had it here in Delaware. And I had been telling people that, for 10 years, and folks finally put a feeler out, the state of Delaware put a feeler out, and they got all kind of replies back when they put out their requests for applications,
The sad thing was not getting to hold on to GM.
Yes, that was because GM would have been a perfect distribution center and network, for the ship, the containers and the cargo in those containers. Because what we're talking about now in terms, Delaware right now is known for fruit. It's the largest and number 1 fruit port in the country. Got Dole and Chiquita, fresh fruits. But with the expansion, we're talking about the consumer goods, those goods that are at Sears and J.C. Penney's and Kohl's and Boscow's and BJ's and Advance Auto and all those consumer stores, we're talking about bringing those goods in because those goods are basically, when you look at what you eat, what you buy, what you look at, what you talk on in terms of telephones, your television, your clothes, look at the labels. The labels say made somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Very seldom do you have a label that says made in the USA. So the shipping industry is very important to the consumer goods and the consumer appetite. We want to be able to fill those appetites here by bringing in the ships, the boxes and the containers who have the commodities that they sell at Boscow's and the commodities that they sell at Advanced Autos or at their furniture stores.
Yeah.
And so GM would have been a perfect place to have a distribution network to service all these different companies, not only here in Delaware but throughout the eastern region. So it's all coming. People now see that it wasn't no pie in the sky dream, that it's real. And again, talking about the job expansion, like I said, you have thousands of trucking jobs going to be developed, but the port has to be built. So that means there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of construction jobs. And that's why I say the port expansion is going to rebuild the middle class in Delaware. And it's beginning to happen because your construction trades are going to be going to work. In terms of your rail system, because a lot of those containers are going to be put on rail and be shipped out on rail. So your railroad and all that stuff is going to begin to hire more people to service, the shipping industry here. So I'm saying the capacity of job creation is unlimited.
Well, that's what kind of brought the P2A into play.
Yeah, and and that feels right into the P2A because of the construction needs. P2A became a way to ensure and to prepare, particularly minority folks, our young folks in the minority community who have dropped out of school, who may have had incidents with law enforcement, to prepare them to be able to take and pass the apprenticeship programs in some of these trades, these building trades, skilled trades areas, so that we can say that these jobs that are created, our folks are going to be in to get these jobs, because the best crime prevention program is a job. So when you talk about preventing crime in Wilmington and the shootings and all that stuff, because folks is out there selling drugs because they don't see no other avenue to make money, give them a job. Give a job, like I said, and I would tell anyone, and the best crime prevention program is a good paying jobs. And it's happening there now. All you gotta do is come down to the hall on mornings where we had 2 or 3 shifts there and see the hundreds of young folks who ordinarily would be standing on the corner slinging drugs down there at the hall trying to get a job in the morning. So I'm saying, what we said was going to happen is happening now. There are a lot of young people now who are now working at the port who maybe last year was out there on the corner doing illegal stuff. But now they're trying to be union members. Some of them have become union members. They're buying homes. Like I say, we're building and rebuilding the middle class in Delaware through the shipping industry.
And so let's go to the pathway to apprenticeship. And we're going to get, we'll have Sandra, we'll have Johnny also come on and be able to just really get into that. But that was one of the things that we talked about with LEAP. It's another organization we're with. That was formed by Johnny Blyden and Sandra Smithers. And we got on the board to help to establish
and
that.
And
LEAP stands for Labor, Education, Economic Empowerment. So that's what LEAP stands for. And that was organization formed to, like I said, but look over here. Organization formed to address exactly that: labor, education, economics, and to empower people to be able to take responsibility, for their lives.
It's a community labor coalition organization that brings the community and organized labor together, to fight some of the common cause and to unite on the issues that are impact, because your labor union people are community people. They live in communities, and in communities that are facing battles with education, unemployment, crime, and all those other things. And so the coalition between the community and labor is a natural coalition, that's long overdue. And so LEAP, fills that void and makes that connection that folks in the community don't feel like labor is some way out of the way organizational group, that they have no relationship with, and now they understand that your labor union member might be your next door neighbor, and so we need to connect those things.
And they understand the importance of unions, actually, because the unions are what build basically the whole structure of how people are paid, paid for sick leave, paid for maternity leave, vacation time, getting certain holidays off, having certain time limits that you can work, and if you have to work past them, that you get paid overtime. People not having to being forced to work, terrible hours, or really lengthy hours and not getting paid any extra for doing so. And those are like the benefits of why unions exist. And I'm hopeful that, people are looking at it and realizing that unions are something that we should be fighting to rebuild and not to let go by. So that was another reason why LEAP was to let the community know that about the unions.
Yes, and to and I gotta give, and we gotta give Jimmy Maravellius, who is the president of the state AFL-CIO,
Yes.
and also the chairman of the State Building Trades Council, credit, because he really helped develop this whole initiative, by signing on initially at the first to the need and understanding the need for this coalition of labor in the community to begin to unite and to fight as a united force against these things that impact working people, because most people in every community are working people. Most people in Wilmington are working people. Most people in Newcastle County are working people. And organized labor is basically organized working people who are organized. And so I got to give and thank the tremendous leadership that Brother Maravellius has demonstrated in this effort to not only build these community and labor relations, but to fight for legislation in Dover that's going to help change and better the conditions of the average working person in Delaware. Minimum wage, right to work, workplace fraud. I mean, we'll have Jimmy on here, to discuss that, and like Angela said, we're going to have John Blyden on here also to discuss the P2A, the Pathway to Apprenticeship Program, which we just discussed it, like I said, that really came out of the needs that were established by the port expansion. And so that we can have Delaware people doing the work and not you pull up to a work site or a construction site or a road site and see all these out-of-town tags, people from Maryland and Jersey and Virginia and Pennsylvania, and you have Delaware people, riding by unemployed, who don't have jobs, and one of the other things that the labor movement has been fighting for is the community jobs. The jobs be set aside for community people. Community hire.
Yes.
Community hire. That if you live in a community and there's a work project in the community, then the people in that community should have a chance, the first opportunities to work in their own communities, and earn a living so they can raise their families and pay their bills, and so that's one of the other initiatives that the labor movement or the organized labor's been pushing and fighting for, in the state, the cities, the state, and the county, and we hope that, the community people begin to support those efforts that the unions that we've been fighting for. So,
And one of the things is that we have to get them to. I mean, that's why it's so important that LEAP is around, and it's so important that P2A was developed, because those are things that are basically powered by the need and the desire to make sure that the people in this community, in the state of Delaware, people of color, and people who didn't get to go to college or had made a mistake, when they were younger, that they have an opportunity to come back and be law-abiding citizens and be able to provide for their children. Um, People talk about it, people meet about it. I've been to so many, you know, forums where they talked about the problem, and so many training programs that were supposed to be addressing the problem, and it really didn't come to anything but just conversation. So that's why,
right.
LEAP was developed, and why P2A was developed, was to actually do something about it. Because when they graduate from P2A, they go directly into
Yeah,
a
it's
job.
direct entry into the union apprenticeship programs into work. It was through the CBTU that I first introduced my idea, and through the CBTU, the Coalition of Black Trade Unions, which had members from various other unions in the
Hmm.
city, county, and the state, that the word began to get put out and get pushed out.
And they
You know,
joined our first
and
meeting
they
that we had with the
yes,
governor
and at the first meeting we had with Governor,
in
we had
2009.
right, we had Mel Phillips there, who is the president, the Delaware State president of the Coalition of Black Trade
Hmm.
Unions in the state of Delaware. So I'm saying, so we want to inform folks, and folks need to know that organized labor and unions are there to fight for the interests of working people. On the education front, on the employment front, on the health front in terms of health insurance, on the wage front in terms of minimum wage fight, on the front for protecting your right to organize, your right to be a union, because there's an effort called Right to Work, which sounds like it's something good, but Right to Work is really an anti-union piece of legislation that seeks to destroy unions and to take the voice away from working people. If you take unions away, you take the voice of working people away. And so all these efforts, we want you to know that once you see or hear union, you hear and see something that's good about the union, believe it. If you hear something bad about the union, believe it's those same people who fought unions when the initial union started early in this country, who had child labor, who didn't have unemployment. They worked children. The union stopped that. That you have children working at 8 years old in the coal mines. I mean, there's a number of things, like Angela said earlier, that we take for granted, but it was the unions who fought and won the victories to protect women at the workplace, to protect, handicapped people who had handicap or disabilities in the workplace. Unions fought for that. Unions fought for the paid holiday, vacation, hospitalization, welfare, Social Security. The unions fought to make those things happen. And a lot of people don't know that, and they need to know. That's why we say this program is about what you need to know, because what we know is going to help us shape the decisions we make for the present and for the future. So.
I mean, we can look at it, look at what's happened to unions over the years. I mean, they've been literally wiped out. And the reason that's happened is because people were just fooled into and tricked in thinking that unions meant that they were just going to take your money, and they were too political, and they just started trying to twist everything to make it into a bad name. And that was all a plot to limit unions
Exactly.
so that they can decrease the pay. Look at all the people now that union jobs are gone, that are all in the workforce. We have low unemployment, but those people are working 2 and 3 jobs,
Yeah.
just to take and make ends meet, when they had a good union job and they were making just working one job was able to do it. But that's what happens when unions are weakened. That's what happens when they lose their strength. Then the employer can come in, and then they can charge what they want to charge. and they don't have the backlash to be held accountable otherwise. And we know if you wait for Washington, I mean, they took them how many years was it just to raise the minimum wage, nationally? I can remember when it was just $5.95, then it got to six something, and I think it stayed that way for like years. But at the
Yes.
same time, you had our senators and congressmen were getting raises every single year, down in D.C. But yeah, it's just so much. This is our first show, so we're new at this. We've been on other shows and talked, independently, but this is our first show that we're doing together. And we hope to just get better as time goes on and to be able to bring in all the information that we possibly can to so that people are aware. I believe that people make decisions based on the information that they have at the time. So, and people make bad decisions a lot of times because of the lack of information. So, if we can get the information out, then maybe we'll just do something that's good, and at least we can feel good about it. So, we're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Thank you for still being there with us. And I have now been joined by Sandra Smithers, and I've mentioned her name a few times already. And she's been kind enough to join me. And we're going to talk about, she wants to tell you about LEAP.
Well, first I want to say it's a pleasure being here and joining you on the show, this inaugural show. And I'd like to talk a little bit about LEAP, this organization that was founded by myself and John Blyden. John Blyden, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to mention it, that he's an organizer for Residential Local 55. And we realized, as you probably have said, that there was a gap between the unions that exist and our communities. And we know that unions offer opportunities for young people and older people also to have a life that the quality of life is improved. They have an opportunity to buy homes, they have an opportunity to increase the tax base, improve education. But our community was not having the opportunity to avail themselves of that. And thank God along came Kimoko with the port expansion project, and I'm sure you've talked a little about that already. And we realized that with all that he was doing and with the people that he had garnered to bring this port expansion about, there was the possibility that our community would be left out because we were not prepared, we did not have the job skills training, and we didn't have the soft skills that went into maintaining a job if we got it. Out of that, we realized that, first of all, LEAP, this organization, needed to make a bridge between our community and the unions, our community and really good paying jobs. So we founded that. We included Kimoko and other people like you. And from that, we determined that we would do everything we could to empower our community, to ensure that we lifted our community out of the throes of poverty and into gainful employment. And so we determined that first we would educate the community. So we had a couple of forums, and they were really, really exciting and positive, very well attended. And for the first time, we had unions, construction unions and other unions represented at a community forum, because unions realize also that there is a shortage of qualified workers. So we've got to bring our community into that setting. Out of those forums came the understanding that we needed to prepare our people. And from that, we initiated, and you were a part of that, Angela, we initiated the P2A program, Pathways to Apprenticeship. And the P2A program I'm very excited about it because, as you know, we've graduated our first class. We have, and you can talk a little bit about that because you were there at the graduation. But the whole purpose of P2A is to provide the soft skills that our young people need, to introduce them to the work ethic that is necessary to sustain a job once they get it, and to prepare them with the basic skills that they need to go into a certified apprenticeship program. And I think that's the most outstanding part of it, that they are actually leaving our program, going into a certified apprenticeship program.
And being paid.
And being paid. That's what a certified apprenticeship program does. It provides people with a living wage, while it is also training them, giving them the job skills, and allowing them to implement those skills on an actual real life job. So with that, I'm extremely excited, but I can let you talk a little bit about the graduation and how we got there, and it was just amazing.
Yes, I couldn't have been more. I couldn't have been more prouder. I think we all were. We were like these proud parents, you know, over the class. Just being able to be there from the beginning and see the gentlemen come in, and you know, having the interview process and listening to them, some of their hopes and some of their reasons why they didn't think that they'd ever have an opportunity because they had some sort of contact with the law. And then us telling them that if you come to the program and you abide by the rules, that opportunity will exist. And the ones doing it, going to the jobs. And I said to the class, we just started a training. Mm-hmm. And I went to the first meeting, and I said to them that the construction trade is not for everyone because it's hard work. It's getting up really early in the morning. It's being on time. And so if you can't get your hands dirty, or you can't lift a certain amount of weight,
it's not the job for you.
It's not the job for you, you know. So everybody's not going to be for the construction trade. That's what some of the ones learned during the training that we had. You know, you just can't come in there and be such a smooth guy and not want to do hard work. You won't make it. But if you are willing to make that sacrifice, not even a sacrifice, if you're willing to take and do that and learn that skill, which is a good skill, then you'll have an opportunity to be able to have a job that'll not just be a job, but it'll be a career. They're providing income for you and your family. And that's the thing that was so rewarding when we had the graduation class. And then to see those graduates be able to go and become employed and go right into a apprenticeship program.
That's
you know,
exciting.
and I mean, Jimmy Maravellius, we can't thank him enough because he has really been an asset in helping along the way with his help and support, and there to help to get those guys a job.
Absolutely.
When they get out.
Absolutely.
And Johnny Blyden, who is not always the most beloved character, because he's so passionate about his mission and wanting to see people treated fairly and wanting to see unions given an opportunity in this state. So he's a little tough, rough around the edges, but he has a big heart and he really cares and he really has a passion to empower the young men today and to do something with themselves. So
now, the one thing I can say about John Blyden, and many times getting to know John can be a little rough, but you can never question his commitment.
Correct.
You can never question his passion, and you can never say that he took anything away from workers. He always gave to them. And I think that's very important because that's the kind of ethic that we need more in construction.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But I was just heartened to realize that at this point, we have some of our graduates who've already begun to experience the American dream. They've bought cars because they've been gainfully employed. They have a regular paycheck. And the other thing that I liked about the P2A program is that it gave them a sense of where we have come from. You know, there was a history involved in that, putting that program together. They needed to know the history, the struggles of our people. You know, the whole struggle with Martin Luther King, with the trash collectors. You know, that whole issue, that's important for our young people to know and to understand, that they stand on the shoulders of people who have gone before them, many of whom who have died. Martin Luther King was one of them.
Yes.
So they really do need to not be better for anyone more than themselves. And if they can be better for themselves, they will be better for our nation. So we have to look at those kinds of things. The other thing is that the group formed a sense of camaraderie. They helped each other. It was like a brotherhood. And I think it was the beginning phases of what a union is all about.
Correct. And we made teaching them, about unions a part of the training. And I mean, that's what I've been saying for, I don't even know how long. The unions just have done a poor job of educating people of the benefits of being in a union. And the other ones who've been trying to attack unions have taken all the opportunities to vilify unions.
Absolutely.
And so that's why it's just really significant that unions start educating our youth, the young ones today, letting them know. Because when we educated those ones, they were like, I didn't know unions did that.
And the idea that they understood the importance of giving back. When you make it, it's important that you reach back and help others. It's not always about how much you're going to get out of it, but you're putting something in the pot that's going to benefit not only yourself, but your children
Yes.
and your community. And it's important that we begin to understand that, because there was a time when we worked as a community, but we've now become so splintered as a nation and as a community that we don't do what we need to do in terms of reaching back. Those of us who have, quote unquote, made it, those of us who at least can count on a steady income and know that we don't have to scratch every day to see what we're going to get to eat or to how we're going to pay our bills. We deserve to, and we should, reach back and help our young people, because there have been a lot of things stacked against them. And they've had to overcome some pretty high obstacles. So we need to reach back. We need to help them. And LEAP is an organization that is doing that, and P2A, under the direction of Rashima Dixon, because Rashima has done a phenomenal job of organizing this whole thing.
She really has. She really has. And I'm just so hopeful. We're just so hopeful that there's just so much more that's going to come from that P2A. This is just the very beginning. And the same with LEAP. These are new organizations. And so we're going to be keeping you up to date on what's happening with these organizations. And we want to also, I'm going to get somebody here from the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists to talk about what's happening there. Because this community, we look at a certain group, and then the rest of them are like overlooked. I mean, there's a population out there of people who are struggling right now,
That's right.
Literally.
That's right.
There's, they say the unemployment is low, but I know a whole lot of people that wish they had a job.
And if they're not unemployed, they're underemployed, which is a
Absolutely.
travesty.
Yes.
Underemployment plagues our community more than any other community. And we've got to begin to address that. I believe, as a former educator, that among the young people that we see, there is so much potential. There is genius there, but it hasn't been unlocked. And it's up to us to provide a mechanism to unlock the genius, to unlock the potential that our young people have. And we've got to make that commitment to them. We can't be too tired. I am so tired of us being too tired when we're in a position to help our young people. We
True.
retire and we don't want to do anything. Now, I know that some of us have health challenges, but we still have so much to give. And for us not to do that is it's a crime. It really is. And what we have done when we do that is just thrown away our future, thrown away the future of our young people, and our children and our grandchildren. So it's more than just about us. it's about what we have to do. We can't get too tired. We don't have that luxury.
Well, that's one of the reasons why we have this. We're going to do this show every week. I mean, every day of the week is going to be something, because people don't know. I mean, we're in the small. Delaware is a small state. Wilmington's a small. We're small.
Yes.
But when I talk to people, I'm always trying to explain to them what CBTU is, what LEAP is, what P2A is now. Different things that I'm involved in. I'm always like LAPA. And the whole thing with Channel 28 is the reason why we're here on Channel 190. And we're going to talk about that at another time. But always trying to explain is like, you're talking to everybody over and over and over again. Or about voting.
The importance of
voting.
Oh my gosh.
You're constantly, saying these things over and over and over again, and as if, and people are just hearing it for the first time. And I'm like, it has to be another way of being able to get the message out. And we have meetings, we have forums, we're talking to people all the time, we're trying to inform people all the time. So maybe we'll do this now.
Well, as a state and as a city, we are too small to be so disconnected and so ill-informed, misinformed, and uninformed. We really have to do a better job about that. We have to figure out how, and we have to be able to listen to our young people, because they can tell us how. I mean, they have the facility with all the social media. They know how to contact each other about a party.
Social media, because I get afraid of that fake news, and I said, like, we've got to have a way, an avenue of educating our kids. And so I said, one of the things I want to just always in my show, I want to always say is that, anything you hear, verify it.
Right.
You just can't believe it as being a fact. Every fact should be checked, and everything should be verified, because there's so much misinformation being put out there.
That's right.
Or half information
right.
being put out there
That's right.
in order to skew it to one way or another. So just don't listen to what I say, just check it, verify it, because, or anything you hear,
That's right.
verify
That's right.
it, because that's what's happening now. I get emails from certain websites that information is absolutely just
Incorrect.
crazy.
Absolutely.
But I'm on the mailing list some way, somehow, and
So
they're
am I.
sending me all this stuff, and I'm just reading it because I want to see what I'm getting, and I'm like, what in the world?
Absolutely.
And it's just not true.
That's true.
So, that's what's happening. And a lot of our youth today, that's all they do is listen to, they read everything. Everything's online. They don't read a paper.
Right.
They don't really have a lot of conversations about it, but they're on their phones or
Right.
iPads reading all of this stuff. And some of the stuff is just bizarre.
Well, I just want to look at the upside of all of this, because you can take the fact, what happened with LAPA. Channel 28 is no longer available. However, you have this show. And so when one door closes, another one opens.
Like we said.
And necessity is the mother of invention. One of the reasons we did so much better as a community in times past was because we were segregated. One of the reasons I felt so safe in the community that I grew up with is because I knew nobody else was coming in there to get me. I knew everybody cared about me. You know what I mean? So out of every bad situation comes something good if we want to make it that way. And we've got to always remember, we've got to make it. We've got to make it good.
That's right. Make it. That's what I'm talking about. You've got to be able to do it. You can't sit back and think it's going to happen.
That's right.
And that's why when Channel 28, when that happened where you could no longer go on, they were live TV, it opened the door in a way kind of like a blessing in disguise.
Yes.
Because now we came over to 190 and we're able to not do the shows the way we actually wanted them, but we're able to do the show and not have to be under all of the restrictions and requirements that we were previously under. And still be able to get the information out to
That's
the
right.
people. Because we
That's
couldn't
right.
just go away. I mean,
That's
how
right.
can all the producers just go away?
That's right.
Because they provided a necessary forum.
Remember the days of Scoop, when with that
Oh,
news.
oh, I remember that.
Okay, remember we had ways to communicate with each other. We don't have that anymore.
No.
You know, all of those printed organs are now gone. So we have to find a way to communicate with each other and without being censored or without being having everything we say be filtered through a particular lens. And so it gets us back to, what are we about? We've got to be about our community. And how do we do that? We've got to figure a way to bring
Absolutely.
all of us together and put aside our differences, because we know that it's about survival. And the whole idea of divide and conquer has been very much implemented in the city of Wilmington and in Newcastle County, in the state of Delaware, actually.
It's in the White House
You know.
now. So, I mean, that's the fact. Divide and conquer.
That's
and
right.
it's real.
That's right.
And
It's happening. It's
so it
happening
was
to all
just,
of us.
You know, we have to. We have to find every avenue possible. Make the avenues.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, in order to be able to reach out to our community and to let them be informed on what's happening. Because, you know, I always say, you know, how can you be silent and not say something? And if you say something, then try to do something about it. And
So many times.
Kimoko feels that way. I mean, that's
I
why
know.
that's why we're together, basically, why we're
Absolutely.
connected. We're connected because we have the same bond
Absolutely.
of caring about our community.
That's right.
And just caring about people.
And I can't believe that it's just you and me or a few people who are in LEAP. I can't believe that it's just us
Oh, of
who
course
care.
not.
There are lots of people. We've got to find a way to bridge that
That's
gap
it.
and to bring us all together.
it.
And we have a number of organizations in and around the city who are struggling with the same thing. How do we bring people together? And I don't know. I don't have the answer. But I can tell you how we did it when I was younger. But of course, those are days gone by. We have to look at young people and get their input a lot about how do we get to each other, because they can certainly reach each other.
Well, I've been talking to quite a few of them, and I'm going to be having them on the show. We've got to be able to just, I tell you what it is, what the key is. The key is just being able to communicate,
Yeah.
period.
Without judging.
Correct. Able to communicate and able to share information.
And I think it's critical that people of our age need to remember, so many times we've lost the memory of how it was when we were young. All of the things that we did, that we wanted to do. Young people today are no different.
No.
The circumstances in which they live are different, but they're no different. They were just like we were. They wanted to have fun. They wanted to have money. They wanted to do the things they wanted to do. And is there anything wrong with that? Except we didn't have to deal with an outlandish incarceration system. We didn't have to deal so much with the drug dumps that have been in our community. We didn't have to deal with the dumps of weapons that have come to our community. There's so many factors that young people are facing today that we didn't really have to deal with.
No.
So one of
So
these
it's going to be
things.
soldiers like us.
And-
It's going to be soldiers like us.
Yes,
That
yes.
stay out there and that continue to try to reach out and touch somebody, as they say. And I just thank you for agreeing to be on the show with me.
Well, it has been my pleasure.
I mean, really, because at first I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And then I thought, I always enjoy listening to you.
Well, Angela, we can talk for hours. The amount of time that you have on the show is not nearly enough for you and me,
Right.
because we think along the same lines and we can both talk.
Yep, and we have the same passion.
Yes.
And our people today, our young people, really need it, especially with what's happening, at the top.
That's
In the
true.
White House.
That's true.
We have someone there who just continues to spread hatred. I mean, sometimes I just can't even believe it. Like, what is happening? Where are we at? I'm a Christian, and I'm proud to be a Christian. And I truly believe that,
Well, some people are guided by love and others are guided by hate. And in this world, there are two forces. there's a force of good and a force of evil. Well, we have one of the strongest forces of evil in the White House today. If we didn't know it, we would. He is just the embodiment of everything that you would not want a child or a relative of yours to be. Everything.
And he is, and it's just unbelievable. So I know a lot of people are praying supposedly for him and with him, and I'm sure enough praying for all of us. I know I'm praying for my children, my family, my friends, and for the rest of us here. You know,
I'm praying that he get out of that White House as
exactly.
soon as possible. That's what my prayer is. I don't want him to be hurt. I just want him out.
I was having a conversation with someone, and they were trying to tell me, well, you all you want to focus on is Trump, Trump, Trump. Everybody attacks Trump, but when Obama was in there, I mean, look, he didn't do anything about the mass incarceration rate, and Bill Clinton, you know, he was the one that created the law. Him and Joe Biden. I mean, they were like just. And every time I talked about Trump, well, what do you feel about Trump? They kept on attacking.
The one thing they don't bring up is that yes, Bill Clinton signed that crime bill law. That really devastated our community. But guess who was a part of all of that? The Congressional Black Caucus.
Yes.
So they forget that was a part of that too. The circumstances in this country were different, and people were doing the best they could with the limited information that they had. However, you know, how many of us have lived a stellar life and made all the right decisions and can't look back and say, that was a wrong decision?
Right.
Many of us as parents have made wrong decisions, and we can see the impact on our children. So, you know, we can't just hold a person responsible for everything they did unless they refuse to change and refuse to admit that it was a bad decision. You know, and all we can do at that point is correct it. But I just think about the fact, I just heard a statistic yesterday, and it was very interesting. They were looking at the approval rating of President Obama among the African American Democratic voters. He's got a 99% approval rating. I don't think you can get much better than that. You know, so those of us who talk about the fact that he did not do enough about with black incarceration. The fact is that so many of the prisons are state prisons. He could not impact those, but for the federal prisons, he did have an impact. And so we need to be able to speak from a position of knowledge.
Correct.
And not, you know, just emotions and listen to what somebody has to say.
But it's kind of like, you know, that's where they are when you. And these are, you know, millennials, you know, black entrepreneurs that somehow felt that, I guess they got caught up in thinking that having a businessman in there would make a difference, you know, and it would create a change for them. And I said, well, look, you talked about that and you voted for him, so just tell me, how do you feel now? Mm-hmm. And that was the feedback I kept getting, and it's like,
well, because a person is in business does not mean that they can easily connect the dots. And once again, it's about not being selfish about what we want and where we're going. And so when you look at people who can say, especially African Americans, it's distressing, because if all they can be looking at is the fact that this man may have done something better for them as a business person, and they don't look at all of the repercussions and the ramifications of what he's done to us as people. You know, just to take a look at the Central Park Five, where even though they were exonerated, he still thought they should be killed. Mm-hmm. Okay? That should be enough for any black person to understand his attitude. Absolutely.
And that's the thing.
Absolutely.
So I brought that up basically not to try to single out anybody like young entrepreneurs or anything like that. I brought it up just as reflecting back on a few conversations that I had, and the fact that we are having a 2020 election coming up. And so, and that's why I'm so concerned about the fake information going out, because we have a 2020 election coming out, and you're right, we do want him out of there. And so it's just crucial that we try to help, with the information that gets out there so that people can feel the same way we feel, and we can definitely get them up out of there.
Well, we can't afford to be low information voters.
That's right.
And so we've got to get the information out to our young people. And our young people have got to know their history. Amazingly, many of our young people do not know their history today. And a lot of it is because there's been no impetus to teach it. Because the people who are teaching them don't know the history. So how can they teach them? Our teachers taught us. When I'm a product of segregated schools, and our teachers ensured that we knew our history. Well, we cannot expect people who don't know their history or who lived an opposite history to teach our children theirs. But when we integrated the schools, we made no provision to support our children to ensure that they had an understanding of self and history. That's very important. We turned our children over to enemies without even giving them the support and the cover that they needed. And that's not to blame anyone, because we were naive at the time too. We didn't know what to expect. We were trying to make it better for our kids. But in the long run, there was collateral damage. And we've got to live with that, and we need to correct that. That's what produces what we have today with our young people who don't know their history, don't care about the struggle, and it's not their fault if they've not been taught.
Yeah, a lot of work to do.
Oh, yeah.
And I know this, I'll be doing it for as long as God gives me the...
Until they carry us out feet first.
And I'm sure you will. I know that Kimoko definitely will, All of us together who are working and forming this pact that we have are working for change, just caring about our community and just wanting I believe in planting good seeds. And because I believe that you reap what you sow, and so if you're sowing good, then you're going to reap good.
Absolutely.
And if not you, then the future generations. And so that's what's so important. And I think we all feel that way, that you just have to continue to plant those good seeds out there.
And water them. And water them with loving, caring, attention. So, yeah.
And hopefully be able to have an impact and make a difference.
We will.
And
they will.
Yeah.
Our young people will make a difference. I have faith in them.
So do I.
I just know that I have seen some of the most inspiring young people. And, we just have to support them and know that they're going to bring others and give them an opportunity.
And I don't know how much more time we have here, but I just want to, again, say to the audience, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I'm going to be doing this quite often. She's going to most likely be my co-host.
We'll be talking.
We're going to be bringing on people that are involved in the labor in Jimmy Maravellius. Hopefully we can get some of the different trades he has. He can bring them on too. It's so important to me that the community is informed about unions. I think unions need to have a voice, and we need to start building that base back up. We have a political year coming up in 2020, and I think people need to be informed, at least given the information, but not told what choices to make, but just given the information and let them make the choices. We're really working hard on the community with kids, and well, not just the kids, but with the young adults who have bright futures who are looking for opportunities. And we want to be able to be a part of that, just bridging the gap. And the port, Kimoko's going to definitely come back and give updates on the port and what's happening there. CB2U, they'll be on here telling you about what's happening, because everybody seems to come through those doors. I mean, it's a lot of ground root organizations in the city of Wilmington that are doing good things, and are really trying to have an impact and to educate the communities. And hopefully this program will be
a conduit for that.
I mean, it'll just be there and be a airways for them to be able to have a voice and reach that community. So thank you again so much. I am really looking forward to it, and like I said, that we'll get better as time goes on, and hopefully you'll be there with us, and we'll build an audience. We'll give you updates, and just have a great day. Thank you so much. We're signing out, me and Sandra Smithers, and I'm Angela Harris.
And I'm Sandra Smithers.
Thank you.
Thank you.